So this is the final introductory video, and this is a continuation of the content in regard to how people relate to disappointment, the prospect of disappointment. Basically, somebody who, when they have a clear priority, they just aren't concerned with disappointment either way. An idealist may experience terror of disappointment, anxiety about possible disappointment. It may be a major issue for them. And for people who are just coming into clarity and just shifting initially away from programmed ideals towards real native priorities, their instinctual interests, their innate motivations, then we may want to have some discernment about this issue of disappointment and being terrified of disappointment. We may be kind of recovering idealists. I certainly have them. Not everyone will have this experience. You know, if you're quite young when you're lucky enough to, if you're lucky enough to be quite young when you're exposed to these ideas, then you may not have ever experienced a lot of idealism. But many people will be quite experienced with idealism and disappointment and complex forms of frustration. And so I want to talk about, again, how some of that can resolve and how it developed in the first place. So most people, because how it developed in the first place is kind of the reverse process of how it will disappear. Most people are terrified of disappointment. Why is that? Because they've invested so much into a target outcome that they are terrified that if they do effectively produce that outcome, then having produced the outcome will still be disappointing. That is what the idealist is terrified of. It's not the disappointment of a method that doesn't effectively produce a result. They're terrified of an effective method for producing a result that really doesn't matter to them, really doesn't fulfill them. That's the disappointment they're concerned with. Why would it be disappointing to actually produce an outcome? Again, if the outcome was not a priority, then producing that outcome may have been a complete waste of energy or a use of energy that was not fulfilling a priority. If you've ever heard of people fearing success, this may be the actual issue in the background. People might fear being successful at things that sacrifice what really matters to them. If being successful at a particular thing sacrifices what really matters to you, then you should avoid that kind of success and instead target fulfillment. Identify a clear priority, effectively produce it, investigate methods for producing it effectively, then effectively produce it, experience fulfillment and success. Take it or leave it. I don't know. Somebody can call it success or not. When you experience fulfillment, other people's validation or confirmation of that will be maybe even odd. You know, why is somebody, sticking their opinion? What is behind their comment? What are they actually investing in? What target outcome is motivating their activity? So people that fear being successful at things that sacrifice what really matters to them could be very common. There could be a lot of people who experience that, at least at some time, maybe for quite a while. And those folks may be stuck, or they may stay stuck in frustration. But when I say they may be stuck or they may stay stuck, they do it by sticking to a familiar focus and sticking with familiar methods that are related to that familiar focus, that idealistic focus. It's not necessarily a passionate pursuit. And I'm a little hesitant to throw in that word passion because it's used so often by idealists. people with a clear priority don't have to use a lot of big words or whatever. They might, but that's incidental. How do you stay stuck in frustration? What behavior produces a sustaining of being stuck? It's by sticking to a familiar focus that isn't really a priority to you, and then sticking with familiar methods that aren't relevant to what really matters to you. Those folks may resist clarity. They may avoid priorities. They may avoid the whole topic of considering what really is their priority, what really does motivate them, what does organize their actions. Those subjects will be threats to some people, at least at some time. Those subjects could even be ridiculed by some people. They may push away on anyone else who is exploring issues of clarity. Some of these topics involve an element of introspection, and introspection might be really intimidating, terrifying, horrifying, frightening to some people who are clinging to the familiar desperately, anxiously. So they ridicule introspection, so they ridicule conversations about priority. They may ridicule unfamiliar methods. That's the kind of thing that they might do. Sometimes that's what happens. So if people have been programmed to be confused and stay confused, that's an interesting subject I want to touch here briefly. If people have been programmed to be confused and stay confused, then they will do what it takes to sustain their confusion, or they might. If they're so motivated by a priority that they're willing to sacrifice confusion, that may be completely unfamiliar territory for some people. So some people may really stick with being stuck and being confused, and some people may be really desperate in the sense of a simple, clear, focused desperation. This is really what attracts me. This is really what interests me. And those folks will sacrifice confusion. They'll sacrifice controversy. They'll sacrifice the familiar in order to tenaciously pursue clarity, in order to consistently, solidly pursue clarity, and then produce results. Once they've established a clear priority or a clear target outcome that really motivates them, then they're going to, again, keep sacrificing confusion and complexity and the familiar for what's a priority to them. So a past of being stuck, a past of experienced confusion, that's just not relevant. Once clarity is relevant, tenacious pursuit of clarity arises. I didn't say that quite how I meant to. Once there's been a contrasting experience of confusion and attraction, and an attraction to lasting, profound clarity, then there can be a tenacious pursuit of ongoing clarity. Initial clarity, ongoing clarity, continuing clarity. In regard to one outcome or in general. At least in regard to a specific priority outcome, there will be a tenacious pursuit of clarity. First, what really do I want in the particular case? And it can be just one priority. It's not, if somebody has 6 priorities or 23, that's not necessarily what is meant by the clear priority for them at that time. One priority that is, what does the word priority mean? It means prior to, first, one singular priority. They want to be clear about a singular priority, and then they want to be clear about how to produce it, what methods are relevant, what resources are relevant, and let's stop talking so much and get to it.